Hello YouTube. This is just a response video that I wanted to make to the recent video that Blaire White and Laci Green made. It's on Blaire White's channel. It's called Blaire White Laci Green Conversation. Um, Before I start, I just want to kind of state where I fall personally, just so you know where I'm coming from. I tend to agree with the Blaire White side more so than the Laci Green side. There's definitely things that I disagree with both, and there's things that I agree with both. But for the most part, I fall more on the Blaire White side of things. Um, I actually listened to this video twice. The first time I listened to it, my take was that Laci Green was kind of a little bit condescending towards Blaire. But after watching it or listening to it a second time, I definitely took something away different from it. I think the reason that I first had that impression of Laci is because she just has a very, I guess, like authoritative, like teacher student type tone to the way that she goes about things, the way just the way that she talks in general. But like I said, the second time listening to it, um, I didn't feel that way. I felt overall that it was a really good conversation that definitely needs to be had more often. Um, I think what I was most surprised and uh, just genuinely shocked about was Laci's ability to really explain her side. I think she did a really good job of that because usually when I watch people from her side, meaning I guess SJW people, people that make those types of videos, um, they do a really poor job of explaining their side, and they don't tend to use any type of facts or a lot of logic. I know that the same could be said about the other side, but that's just my opinion. And I think that Laci definitely cleared up a lot of things in my mind that I wasn't really understanding their perspective on. And another thing that I took away from it was, in a weird way, they kind of both agreed on a lot of things, but most of the disagreement seems to be over definitions of words. It's really hard to have a conversation or a debate with someone when you can't agree on the meaning of certain words. And I'm pretty much referring to the whole gender argument. Um, I think that Blaire White, she pretty much would agree that there's an infinite amount of ways that you can express gender, but there's only two sexes or two genders. And the people on Laci's side of the fence, they seem to sort of mix um, gender identity, gender expression, and biological sex. It's like those terms kind of just all work interchangeably. And I think that's where the argument comes from. But if you take it down to a basic level, in a weird way, they kind of agree with each other. I don't know. That's just my perspective on that. Um, Me myself, I still really haven't formed a solid opinion yet on agender and non-binary people. Um, Again, it's really hard and confusing because when people make videos on it or when I read posts on it, they don't really do a good job of explaining it from a scientific point of view. And when they do explain it from a scientific point of view, it seems like people don't agree with the uh, the studies that they quote, or the studies that they get their information from. So it's like we don't agree on the definitions of the words. We don't agree on the science, of it. It's just I wish that there was just some type of like all-knowing um, robot or something that could just tell you like this is what this is and this is what this is, so that people could stop arguing over, which science or which scientist is correct and not correct. And because it's kind of pointless to have an argument over opinions. I feel like arguments can really only be won with facts, but when people can't agree on the facts, or they don't trust where they're getting their information from, there's really no basis for the argument. I'm definitely going to make a separate video on uh, sort of my journey and my conclusions on how I feel about transgender, agender, non binary, and just sort of my thought process of how I'm working through that. So I'll definitely make a separate video, but I wanted to keep this video more about the conversation that Blaire White and Laci Green had. I think it would be really helpful, and I would really love to see these two sort of have this type of conversation, maybe once every month, or once every couple weeks or whatever, um, and just sort of talk about, what any of the topics that people are disagreeing on, and go into detail. And I think that that is definitely way more useful to the YouTube community. It's way more useful to young people and just everyone, for two people to just sort of sit down and try to understand each other's point of view, rather than making these ridiculous videos where someone basically just takes someone else's video and berates them, belittles them, and just talks about how stupid their opinion is, and makes absolutely no attempt to try to understand that person's point of view. Just because someone doesn't share your point of view doesn't mean you have to demonize them in a video and basically turn them into some sort of ridiculous puppet. So, I'm really happy that Blaire White and Laci Green decided to have this conversation, because I think it was really valuable, very useful, and like, again, I really, really, really hope that they decide to do this at least once a month. Would be great. I'm also really happy that Laci Green brought up the fact that when you identify with a certain social or political group, and you identify with that group publicly, it can be really difficult to open up your mind to change, and maybe changing your opinions, and maybe seeing the other side, seeing their point of view. And I definitely think that this video was a step in the right direction, in saying that, it's okay to listen to people that have different points of view, and it's okay to grow and change your point of view. But what I think is scary is, especially for people who are public figures and people that make YouTube videos that have a following, is they definitely, I mean, they would have to feel trapped in some way. I mean, if either one of these women decided to change their opinion on something, it's like they have to worry about how will their audience respond, how will their community respond. And I think that can be really dangerous, because what happens is it stops people from growing, and it stops the community and just everyone in general from growing. So it's like, how can we ever reach an agreement that benefits everyone if people are just taking pride in something that they identified with a couple years ago, even though they might not even feel the same way on the inside. So I really hope that people, strive to understand that your opinions on things can change, and opinions are not facts, and just sort of work to grow and understand each other. Because again, a lot of times I feel like people that are arguing are really saying the same thing. They're just, they just have a different point of view of the definition of words. So, anyway, in conclusion, um, I definitely will be making a lot more videos on this channel on these types of topics and any topic that I feel compelled to make a video about. So subscribe if you are interested in taking this journey with me on just sort of figuring everything out. Thank you for listening. Bye.